Well, I am responsible for the Happy Face killing, which includes 8 people in 5 states. And there are a lot of victims out there, and I'm very sorry. I didn't, for the life of me, I can't understand myself why.
The chilling note bore a dark confession: the brutal violation and murder of a woman named Tanja Bennett. "Yes, I'm sick, but I enjoy myself too," the author admitted, the words dripping with twisted satisfaction. At the bottom, a single mocking smiley face grinned up from the page, a stark and eerie signature to his depravity. The last time anyone saw Tanja Bennett alive, she kissed her mother goodbye and vanished toward a bus stop. The steady pulse of Back to Life by Soul to Soul whispered through her Walkman headphones. A small black purse dangled from her arm, carrying whatever fragments of her world she deemed essential. Life had not been kind to Tanja. Deprived of oxygen at birth, she struggled with a mild cognitive disability that shadowed her childhood. She was difficult, volatile, once attacking a classmate over a piece of cake in a high school cooking class. As she grew older, addiction took root, leading to a 6-month commitment at a state hospital. By 21, the neon-lit dive bars of Northeast Portland became her second home. The Woodshed, the Copper Penny, Thatcher's. She played pool, hustled drinks, tangled with men who meant her no good. Yet beneath the chaos, she remained striking. Petite, 5'5", with dark gleaming hair, dark brown eyes, and a presence that caught attention. That night, as she disappeared into the city, the music in her ears drowned out the last sounds of the world she was leaving behind. The body lay in a brush, discarded like refuse, along the old Columbia River Highway east of Portland. She had no name, no voice left to scream, only the brutal marks of her final moments, the dark bruises from a merciless beating, the cruel violation of her flesh, and a piece of white rope still biting into her neck. On January 21st, 1990, Tanja Bennett had vanished into the night. By morning, she was just another Jane Doe, her acid-washed jeans torn open, the zipper crudely cut away. Detective John Ingram stood over the body, the cold wind of the Oregon wilderness biting at his skin. Something about this felt wrong, too calculated, too vicious. A sketch of the unknown woman was released, and soon a name emerged: Tanja Bennett. But even with an identity, the police had no leads. The killer had left her body like a riddle, and no one had the answer, until the call came. On February 5th, an anonymous voice whispered a name: John Sosnowski. The killer claimed to have heard John boasting about the murder in a local bar, laughing as he shared details only the killer would know. The caller, police soon learned, was Laverne Pavlinac, John's 57-year-old girlfriend. She spoke of his violent temper, his drunken rages. She knew he was capable of something horrific. Detective Ingram visited Laverne's home, searching for proof, and what he found sent ice through his veins. A letter addressed to John, and scrawled on the back in a careless, damning hand: T. Bennett, good peace. John denied everything. At first, he claimed he had never met Tanja Bennett, but as the questions pressed in, his story twisted, changed. Suddenly he had seen her. But it wasn't him who killed her, it was Chuck, a mysterious friend who had given him a ride home while Bennett's lifeless body lay in the back seat. Ingram didn't believe a word of it, but still there wasn't enough evidence to take John down. Then, the confession came. Laverne sat across the detectives and, in a hushed voice, admitted she had seen Bennett's body. She had asked John if the girl was sick. His response, a chilling murmur. Worse than that, she's dead. And then the story changed again. Laverne now claimed that she had been there during the attack. She had held the rope around Tanja's neck. She had felt it tighten, felt the girl struggle, and when it was over, she knew she had helped snuff out a life. The detectives had their killers, or so they thought. John pleaded no contest to murder, avoiding the death penalty, but earning a life sentence. Laverne, too, was convicted, her own words sealing her fate. But the truth was something far more terrifying. Because of Laverne's false confessions, the trail went cold. Another presence stirred. Someone had stolen his crime. The smiley-faced killer had taken Tanja's life, had felt the thrill of power, the satisfaction and control, and now 2 strangers sat in prison for his work. It wasn't justice, it was theft. Fury burned inside him. He needed to reclaim his name, to carve his signature into the world once more. And so, he killed again. This time the world would know. This time, no one else would take credit. Scrawled in filth on the walls of a Greyhound station men's room in Livingston, Montana, a message taunted the world.
I killed Taunted Bennett, January 21st, 1990, in Portland, Oregon. I beat her to death, read her, and loved it. I'm sick, but I enjoy myself too. 2 people took the blame, and I'm free.
Days later, in another restroom, this time at a truck stop in Oregon, another message appeared. Its words more sinister, more chilling.
I killed Taunted Bennett in Portland. 2 people got the blame, so I can kill again.
And he did. On August 30th, 1992, a woman's body was found near Blythe, California. She had been raped, strangled, discarded like trash, a Jane Doe with no name, no past, only the brutal marks of the man who had taken her life. He would later whisper her name, Claudia. The smiley face killer was still hunting, and he was just getting started. The bodies kept appearing, but the monster remained unseen. A month after the murder of Jane Doe, another woman's corpse turned up along US Highway 99 near Turlock, California. Her name was Cynthia Lynn Rose, and the authorities assumed she had died from a drug overdose. They were wrong. The truth came in the form of a letter. A nameless, faceless predator had begun writing letters to the media, confessing to the horrors they had not yet uncovered. He reached out to the Oregonian, taunting them with the grim details of the lives he had stolen. In one letter, he claimed that Rose was a prostitute he had picked up and murdered, and at the bottom of every letter, he left a mark, a simple, mocking signature that would burn itself into the minds of all who read it. A smiley face. It was the only name the world could give him, the happy face killer. But the smiley face of death wasn't done. In November 1992, Laura Ann Pentland, 26, became his next victim. Her body was found dumped behind a G.I. Joe's store in Salem, Oregon. Her face frozen in terror, her throat bruised from the force of his hands. She had fought for her life, but it hadn't mattered. The happy face killer would later claim that Laura had tried to double her price for sex. She had threatened to call the cops, so he did what he did best. He wrapped his hands around her neck and squeezed. And when it was over, he vanished into the darkness. The happy face killer wasn't finished. He was just beginning. For years, the happy face killer had stalked highways, choosing his victims carefully. Women no one would miss. He was a ghost, a nameless predator leaving bodies in his wake. But in 1995, his arrogance became his undoing. This time, he killed someone he knew. Julie Ann Winningham, 41, of Camas, Washington, had been more than just a passing victim. She had known him, laughed with him, trusted him, and for that, she died. On March 10, 1995, her lifeless body was found dumped over an embankment along State Highway 14. Like the others, she had been strangled. Like the others, she had been left discarded, stripped of dignity, her nude form exposed to the elements. But unlike the others, she had people who noticed she was gone, people who knew she had been seeing a man whose name they remembered. For the first time, investigators had a lead. The happy face killer had made a fatal mistake. He had stepped out of the shadows, and now, for the first time in years, the hunter was about to become the hunted. The happy face killer's name was Keith Hunter Jesperson. Detective Rick Buckner of the Clark County Sheriff's Department, already seasoned from his work on the Wesley Allen Dodd child murder case, took the lead. Buckner worked fast, piecing together Jesperson's life like a puzzle. He tracked his movements, his work as a long-haul truck driver, his past, a marriage, 3 children, a divorce in 1990. But surprisingly, there was no criminal record, nothing to hint at the monster beneath the surface. But Jesperson had a habit. He was always on the move. By March 22, 1995, Buckner had him cornered in Las Cruces, New Mexico. With the help of local deputies, Jesperson was detained and questioned for 6 hours. But he wouldn't break. He was calm, smug. When asked if he wanted an attorney, he simply smirked. "Why would I need a lawyer?" he asked. With no solid evidence, they had to let him go. Jesperson wasted no time. He fled to Arizona, but something in him was unraveling. His usual cold detachment wavered. Alone in a cheap motel, he tried to kill himself. Twice. Both times, his body rejected the overdose of pills. It was almost as if something refused to let him die. He made a choice. On March 24th, 1995, Jesperson sat down and wrote 2 letters, one to his children and one to his brother. The words were chilling. That night, Jesperson dropped the letters in the mail and picked up the phone. He called Detective Buckner. Calmly, he confessed to the murder of Julie Ann Winningham. He said he knew he would either be sentenced to life in prison or executed, and in either case, he would never have the chance to kill again. 6 days later, Buckner flew to Arizona to retrieve him. Back in Washington, Jesperson made one last desperate move. He called his brother and ordered him to destroy the letter he had written, but his brother refused. On the advice of a lawyer, he handed it over to the police. Within days, newspapers had printed it for the world to see. Buckner sent out Jesperson's name and travel history to law enforcement agencies across the country. The response was immediate. 16 departments reached out, each with their own unsolved murders. Women found strangled, bodies left near truck stops and highways. One body stood out. In Oregon, detectives had been investigating the disappearance of a woman from a truck stop in Wilsonville in August 1994. She had been missing for months until her body was found along a highway near Medford in March 1995, just days after Jesperson's arrest. And there were more, many more. The monster had left a trail of bodies across the country. Now, for the first time, the world saw him for what he truly was. On November 27, 1995, after spending over 4 years behind bars for a crime they didn't commit, Laverne Pavlinac and John Sosnowski were finally released from prison. Jesperson reportedly wept upon hearing the news. Were his tears regret for confessing to a murder he might have gotten away with? In the autumn of 1994 in Spokane, Washington, a 15-year-old girl named Melissa experienced the last memory of her father before his fall from grace. On that overcast morning, he appeared unannounced at their modest home, a truck-driving father whose visits were unpredictable. Despite the divorce that had long divided the family, he managed to wrangle the children into his massive truck. In the cramped sleeper cab, Melissa and her younger sister perched atop a thin mattress, while her brother occupied the front seat. Yet, even in those early moments of an ordinary breakfast, strange details whispered of something far more sinister. Not long after the journey began, her brother's eyes widened in shock as he discovered a hidden pack of cigarettes in the glove compartment. Cigarettes that, according to their father, were reserved for friends and the woman he picked up along the road. The look on Jesperson's face hinted at unspoken secrets. Then, as the truck turned a familiar corner by Melissa's high school, a heavy roll of duct tape tumbled from the back compartment. Its presence, out of place, it unsettled her even as she tried to dismiss it. The morning's unease deepened when, after dropping off her siblings, only Melissa and her father remained. They parked at a downtown diner, where harsh fluorescent lights revealed a side of him that made her skin crawl. He carried an air of disquieting confidence, a man who was both a doting parent and a predator in disguise. As he flirted lewdly with the waitress and recounted graphic details of his past relationship with her mother, an undercurrent of menace thrummed in the air. Then, with a gravity that chilled her to the bone, he leaned across the window booth and murmured, "Not everything is what it appears to be, Missy." When Melissa hesitantly asked what he meant, his eyes flickered with inner torment before he added,
"I have something important to tell you, but I can't. If I do, you'll tell the police. I'm not what you think I am, Melissa."
The words uttered in that long, oppressive silence sent her heart plummeting into a darkness she had never known. In the weeks that followed, the horrifying fragments of the morning never left her. In March 1995, her mother broke the news in a voice as cold as the steel of a prison cell. Her father had been arrested for murder. The revelation shattered the tenuous fabric of her childhood and forced her to confront long-buried memories of a past too grotesque to name. On the family farm of her earliest years, she recalled the macabre sight of tiny kittens, once rescued from the cellar, then callously suspended on a clothesline. She remembered another day when, while she and her brother were quietly caressing a sleek black cat, her father, a towering, menacing figure, has seized the animal and twisted its head. Over the summer, while whispers of his confessions filled local news reports, Melissa combed through newspaper clippings in the hushed refuge of the library. Each article painted a portrait of duality, the gentle father returning from long-haul journeys, juxtaposed against the remorseless killer, the infamous happy-face killer. She recalled with a shudder a long-ago drive along the Columbia River when her father had, as if reciting a dark fantasy, declared, "I know how to kill someone and get away with it," before describing in chilling detail the meticulous cruelty he employed. A man now condemned to 3 consecutive life sentences, his monstrous legacy forever confined within concrete walls. In September 2009, Jesperson faced indictment once again, and by December the same year, he had been extradited to Riverside County, California, to answer for murder charges. The proceedings did not end there. In January 2010, another conviction added a 4th life sentence to his ever-growing ledger of cruelty. Yet, even with his imprisonment, the shadows of his past lingered, lives shattered, families haunted, and unanswered questions festering in the silence. The happy-faced killer's reign had ended, but the echoes of his brutality would never truly fade. I can't help but wonder, if Laverne had never falsely confessed to Bennett's murder, could other women have been spared from ever crossing paths with the horrific happy-faced killer?